The first video I released on this channel discussed the similarities between the season 1 of FX's shows Dave in Atlanta. That was a year ago and I actually have over 100 subscribers now. So I figured I would make another video for my day 1 supporters analyzing Dave in Atlanta season 2 ahead of the Atlanta season 3 drop in March. Now, I have to admit that this video might be more of a critique of Dave Season 2 rather than a comparison to Atlanta Season 2. I say this because it was a lot easier to compare the first seasons of each show due to the essence of their conceptualized springboard, in respects that they were both advertised to be dramedies centered around a rapper trying to make it in the industry, while at the same time being produced and starring their respective creators, Donald Glover and David Burd. On paper, they seem like the same show, but actually diverge completely in their direction. This can be said when looking at the second season of both shows. In season 2 of both Dave and Atlanta, our main characters have reached a higher level of fame and success, but still need to go through changing their relationships, environment, and themselves in order to continue growing. So how about we go a bit deeper by deconstructing just a few episodes of Dave season 2 and then comparing it to Atlanta season 2 at the end of the video. Spoilers ahead. International Gander starts the season off with a bold curveball that I was not expecting. Basically, at this point in his career, Dave has signed with a record label that is willing to put out his first album. And to promote that album, they have sent him to Korea to present at an award show and collaborate on a video with Korean pop star CL. I would like to start off by saying that this is one of the cringiest episodes of the whole series. And usually when I talk about Dave being cringy, I mean it in a good way. But this was just a bad cringe. In the first 2 minutes of the series premiere, Dave mistakes people in the first row of the award show as pop sensation BTS when they are just some Korean people in the front row. Then we see him treat his Korean assistant like absolute dog shit. The episode continues with Dave and the crew just generally being dismissive of the Korean intern and the Korean culture as a whole instead of interacting with it. The music video that Dave is supposed to be making with CL and the concept of it is just really bad. Dave also refuses to switch from LA time and gives CL the wrong time to show up for the music video, which leads them to suspect she canceled on them due to Gaeta smoking weed in a picture they took together. While on their way to talk to CL, the Korean intern is detained by the police while carrying Dave's music laptop. Dave convinces everyone that the laptop is so important because it has the only copy of his album, and that becomes the only reason to check on the intern or try to bail him out of the jail. During a tense scene at the jail, Dave reveals that he actually hasn't even started working on any music for the album. So, the intern. It's revealed that he was detained by the police because he never did his mandatory military service in the Korean army. Fun fact, all able-bodied South Korean men aged between 18 and 28 must serve in the military for about 2 years as part of the country's efforts to guard against North Korea. The intern didn't suspect that he would be detained because while being born in Korea, he's actually lived in Paloma his whole life. So after Dave reveals to the team that the laptop really isn't that important because Dave hasn't actually done anything, they just leave the intern there and he's basically never talked about again in the whole season. Matter of fact, basically everything that Dave does in Korea never really makes a difference to his career or makes any lasting impact on the story. The real reason for this episode being the season opener is to set up the main theme to the season. Dave needs to make an album, but he has crippling writer's block and anxiety. That is the main thread of the whole season. I'm not sure what it is about this episode that pisses me off so much. For one, I am slightly irritated with the trend of shoving K-pop into everything. And I actually kinda like K-pop. The trend has just been kinda oversaturating and I was kinda not expecting it. And before I lose all of my 100 subscribers, I know that the episode is a critique of that trend, and hell, they even say it at the end. But I do not think that this episode accomplishes what it set out to do. There is literally no reason for it to be set in Korea. So as this episode attempts to call out culture vultures, it also felt like an attempt to be one, and just didn't balance well with me. The episode actually kinda reminds me of an iCarly episode where they go to Japan, and it just doesn't seem like the iCarly crew is actually in Japan or interacting with the culture in any meaningful way. And funny enough, that episode of iCarly has the same premise of the gang going to Japan for an award show to build clout. Maybe Dave is secretly an iCarly fan. Okay, so I actually just found this article that says CL flew to LA to be in the episode. So yeah, they obviously couldn't make it look like they were actually in Seoul, So my question is, really, why then? Other than Dave needs to work on his album, not a single plot thread really carries over into the season. So why is he in Korea? I know that this episode of Dave was actually very informed and completely got the stamp of approval from CL and other creative directors. People actually like the episode a lot. I just really didn't. And I know that it's starting to seem like this video is just going to be me trying to dunk on season 2 of Dave. But that is not at all the case. To be honest, this section was just me clearing out some grievances that I didn't want to make into another video. The season opener was disappointing, but it was still actually entertaining and good TV by all standards. It just felt like the message was lost, especially if it was supposed to kick off the season. But then came episode 2 of the season, ANTSY. If International Gander is one of the cringiest episodes in a bad way, ANTSY is by far the cringiest episode in a good way. At the start of this episode, we see that Dave has locked himself in his home studio at his massive hillside mansion that the record label has lent him to work on his album. He doesn't get far into his recording process because he finds out that the house has a slight ant infestation. So obviously he can't work on the album and goes to the record label to complain about the ants. Meanwhile, we have the return of Dave's friend and producer Els. Els is having a comeback party where Dave is expecting to see his ex-girlfriend Allie. And what can I say about Allie? She's the best. In the first season, she is the proxy of Dave's goals being realized. Dave and Allie's relationship worked very well with the show because it was clear that the more Dave focused on his career, the more the cracks of all of his relationships would be revealed. And this was especially true for his relationship with Allie. They end up breaking up at the end of season 1 due to Dave's narcissism and ambition. And there's this really great leitmotif called Allie's song that goes like this.
Have it your way. I know I'm late, but it's okay.
No, we don't have time to wait.
So Dave spends his day obsessing over seeing Allie and Els again after the last season. It's also kinda a big deal that Els is coming back because we also see his relationship with Dave crack in the first season when Dave realizes that Els is making beats for other rappers and pursuing his own career outside of Dave's and is doing quite well for himself despite disconnecting with Dave. Throughout the episode, we see Dave's insecurities on full display when confronted with just the general pressures of his life that are the result of his own decisions. And these are personified by Allie and Els. His decisions, like his house, are infected with his anxious behavior. So the episode is aptly titled ANTSY. And they do this great thing in the episode as Dave is waiting for Allie to show up to the party. He keeps on seeing her doppelganger. And I was fooled by it every single time they did it. He then ends up bringing one of the doppelgangers home and tries to recreate the situation that he and Allie were in when he made Allie's song. But it goes so horribly wrong when he realizes that he's just hooking up with a groupie that wants to see his weird penis, so he sends her home, only to jerk it with a machine that is also infested with ants and falls out his window in a panic. So the audience is led to think. This is what Dave is imagining what would happen if he didn't hook up with Allie's doppelganger. As they get up to leave, to go to his bedroom, the camera focuses on an ant that has been crawling over the situation the whole time. Is it just me, or is that a way better season opening than the Korea episode? It does everything to establish Dave's state of mind throughout the season and also centers around the main cast of characters potentially reuniting. Dave is still being a cringelord, but it also feels relatable because we understand that he's feeling antsy about seeing Allie and Els again. So now let's take what we discussed about Dave and compare it with season 2 of Atlanta. I know how you guys feel about Atlanta, and I love the comments that I got on my first video, but now I ask, what makes Atlanta so good? Season 2 of Atlanta managed to blow out audience expectations while offering something new and unexpected in terms of character depth. And the most important character that season 2 was able to add depth to was the city of Atlanta itself. If Dave is the central character of Dave, the central character of Atlanta is the literal city of Atlanta. Let's consider the season 2 opening of Atlanta. Alligator Man. The first few minutes of this episode follows two unknown teenagers hanging out and playing video games. The kids talk about a guy that's apparently selling weed out of a fast food drive-thru and decide to go check it out for themselves. From what I had seen in Atlanta in the first season, there is every reason to suspect that this pickup was going to be some wacky, surreal comedic scene where the kids would probably be picking up weed from Darius or somehow interacting with the main cast. But when the kids arrive at the drive-thru spot, there are still no main cast members in the scene. 17. The kids use the secret code at the drive-thru, ordering a number 17. And as soon as they receive the confirmation, the entire tone shifts and they are suddenly in mass, hopping through the drive-thru window like pirates pillaging a ship. As the masked teens escape the parking lot, the dealer rains down bullets on their car with an AK-47. The car stops to let out a girl that was patiently waiting in the back seat, out of view from the audience the whole time. The car drives off, leaving the girl there with blood dripping from her ear, screaming in the parking lot. The fast food dealer lowers his gun in shock as he realizes what he's just done. The camera zooms out from the parking lot and we hover over the city when the audience is formally introduced to Atlanta Season 2, aptly named Robin Season. So why does Season 2 insist on spending so much time on this random event with none of the characters we are familiar with? To better flesh out the character of Atlanta. The kids playing video games one moment and masking up toting guns the next, the fast food dealer in the secret order, the girl screaming in the parking lot. All of it is important to set up the character of Atlanta itself and how Ern, Alfred, Van, and Darius will have to navigate around that character. The city of Atlanta and the way they portray it through surrealism is a vehicle our beloved cast must use to change their relationships, environment, and themselves in order to continue growing. It is Robin season, and the city of Atlanta will devastate our characters if they allow it to. Throughout the season, Ern is constantly failing as Alfred's manager because he is consistently cutting corners to avoid taking risks. The responsibility of picking up after the mess comes down to Alfred bailing him out or giving him a lot of slack to work with. In a genius flashback episode, we see that Alfred has been playing this role for Ern their whole lives. By the end of season 2, Alfred is sick of Ern being his manager because he also goes through his own personal growth. Alfred, or Paperboy, wants to become a successful rapper like Dave, but he is also dedicated to staying grounded and quote-unquote real by not indulging in the pompousness that comes with celebrity. That's the only way he sees his path to success, so he is unwilling to change. However, the city of Atlanta does not allow this to happen. In the episode Woods, Alfred goes on a date with a vapid Instagram celebrity that represents the opposition to his own views. The date goes sour when his ideology of staying real clashes with hers, so he decides to walk home. However, while Alfred is walking through the city of Atlanta, he is confronted by teens pretending to be some of his fans. Before they jump him, they compliment him on staying quote-unquote real. Alfred makes his escape into the woods where he is haunted by a ghost that calls him stubborn and advises him that if he keeps standing still, you're gone.
Keep standing still? You're gone, boy. You're wasting time. And the only people who got time are dead. And if you're dead, I'm gonna take them shoes. And your wallet, and that shirt.
There is no in-between. The ghost is telling Alfred that stubbornness and unwillingness to change will ensure that Alfred falls victim to the city of Atlanta. And these are just a couple moments in a season that is packed with scenes that are so emotionally gripping and strange that it really leaves a mark on the audience and truly lives up to every accolade the show has been given. But is Atlanta Season 2 funny? I'm not sure it is. And Atlanta really isn't trying to be all that funny in Season 2 in particular. And I guess that's where Season 2 of Dave and Atlanta to differ the most. Season 1 definitely had deep and surreal elements to it, but Season 2 just takes it to another level to the point where the comedy definitely feels like something that can only be realized by first building up a relationship with the show and the characters. Dave Season 2 kind of does the opposite, where the joke comes first and relationships and character building afterwards. Kind of like how they place the Korea episode first and then directly afterwards ANTSY, which is a lot more emotionally charged. But this video is already getting pretty long, so I'm going to leave it at that for now. Let me know what you think about Dave and Atlanta in the comments below. I just love the comments so much, and I might feature them again in my next video too. Atlanta Season 3 is dropping in March. That's very soon, and I cannot wait to start watching that. But yeah, like, subscribe, check out my last video or my first video on the channel discussing this topic. I would definitely like the feedback. Just want to know what everyone thinks about my progress. And yeah, just support the channel by throwing that, smashing down on that subscribe button. I'm out.